Hello everybody, Python for automation. We are looking at how you can automate configuration of network devices and use Python to successfully read and write to those devices. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at some Cisco labs and their Sandbox environment, and we are going to be looking at how we can work with their API. I believe they call it leverage these days, but yeah, enough of that. So let's just minimize this, and I just want to show you I've already done some research, believe it or not. I do prepare for these videos. So yeah, what's going on there? I'm on the wrong workspace. Let me just hop across to the other workspace. Hopefully that's better. Can you see that okay? Yeah, right. So what we've got is some code which Cisco have already provided me with. So I'm kind of working from the working backwards. So this is called Getting Started with Cisco SD WAN REST APIs. Now the fact that it's SD WAN is not it's not critical, because what we're actually looking at is how to use the APIs with GET and POST requests. And thankfully, if you go to Cisco DevNet Getting Started with blah blah blah, you end up with some handy hints telling you how to clone the repo, change into the repo directory, set up a virtual environment, install all of the requirements. So that's pip install -r requirements.txt. And then to successfully do the tutorial or the work in the sandbox, you need to export these IP address, port number, username, password. And then there's some code. So there's 3 lots of code. The code I think it's Stuart Clark, isn't it? He's written actually uses something called tabulate to give you a nice table format, and that's the output from a Python script called sd1.py, and it outputs to template list. You can see there's some commands there. You can get network devices, detach a template. Don't worry about templates, that's just something that's sort of Cisco SD1 specific. But yeah, tabulate is good if you are outputting to command line from Python. So what I've started with was there's post, get, login. These 3 you can actually combine and put into a class called REST API lib. And let's just look at the code. So hopefully you haven't been put off by the fact that I've mentioned Cisco several times. This really is Python. The essence of this video is to look and see how Python is used with proprietary APIs for hardware. So import requests, JSON, sys. So he's created a class called REST API lib. The init method, so when you instantiate an instance, or when you create an instance of the class, you need to pass the vManage. vManage is a Cisco appliance which it centralizes the control planes. So rather than having multiple devices out there all kind of managing themselves, this manages them from a central point. Username, password. So we're just setting those and creating an empty dictionary there, which is session. So the first thing to do is log in. That's logging into the device, and it's using HTTPS, and the first placeholder %s will be the IP address, the vManage IP. Then it's going to do something called login action, which is actually what gets appended to the base URL. So it's actually HTTPS management IP followed by the port, and then followed by /J security check, and that goes to the login form, and it puts in the username and the password, or it does if you're doing it by hand or manually rather, and then it forms the URL, and then that URL is then what you if the vManage has a certificate signed by a trusted authority, change verified to true, but otherwise we leave it false. Because it's a sandbox, you don't need to worry about the SSL side of things, which is why, not in this file, but in one of the other files, which was, he called it SD WAN. Yeah, that's where I got this from. From requests.packages.url-lib3.exceptions import insecure request warning, and that using this you can actually suppress the error message. Put the IP, username, and password into some environment variables, and there we see. So what this is my code where I've taken his GitHub repo and I've just tweaked a couple of things. I think there was an indentation somewhere down here which was slightly skew with. But yeah, apart from that, the code is the same. So let's what I'll do is just collapse. I'll just collapse each method. So there we can see the class, and there's an init method which you get with most classes, and then you log in. You perform a GET request, or you can perform a POST request. If you perform a POST request, then you're sending some headers and a payload, and supplying a mount point. The mount point is something like this. So it's basically what comes after the main URL. So this is what the mount point is what you want to go and get your data from or send your data to, depending on whether you're reading the config or whether you're editing and doing a POST request. So this was just the GET request. And when I ran it, I can't show you this now because I've already completed the lab and the sandbox is timed out on me now. One other note is when you run it from Linux, but depending, you can equally do it from, there we go, that was my DevNet, Sandbox, reservation, Cisco.com and all that. Yeah, when I ran that, I wanted to run as a split tunnel so that I could still access web pages, but no matter what I tried, I always ended up. I couldn't add anything to that. It was almost as if the config was. I couldn't actually access the config to change. Oh yeah, because I even tried allow local LAN access when using VPN if configured. So I had that ticked, but it still wasn't giving me a split tunnel. So anyway, I've completed it now. But the whole point of this video really is just to show you how you can, how you can use requests, general, normal Python modules, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with some quite hardcore network equipment. And SD WAN is sort of at service provider level. WAN architecture for enterprises that reduces WAN costs and time to deploy new services. Developers can streamline workflows, deploy and manage devices, and enhance application experience while developing with SD WAN. So let me go through the tabs in order. If you've got a Cisco account, then you can log in and access this. If you haven't, then you will need to register. What I started off looking at was the new XR. So if you are familiar with traditional Cisco IOS Catalyst switches and 1841 routers, then probably the XR, IOS XR would be the next step to take. And here we go, open programmable operating system that enables comprehensive automation, rich visibility, control, operational simplification, and innovation. I'd already done this, so I completed that last week, and yeah, that's probably the first one to go and do. Yeah, and so then today I started looking at the SD WAN one, which we go manage vManage REST APIs. The vManage is the SD WAN API. All right, it's the SD WAN application. So yeah, what I was doing, just to fill you in on how I got to that point, was completed all of these things: Python libraries, import libraries, environment variables. Yeah, then it moves on to things called templates, which I'm not overly interested in at this moment. But part of the tutorial was actually recommending you use Postman first, and this Postman was via a link from the Cisco site, and you just have to put in your Google or GitHub OAuth details and it will log you in. So this is where you can create and then test. Requests can't be sent in public workspaces right now, though we're working on it. Let's create a fork. Okay. Yeah, I was focusing more on the Python side of things. So one other thing I found was this, which is a Postman always on Postman endpoint, which you can then query. Right. Carrying on with the CC. Once I'd once I'd gone past the Postman bits and pieces, then I started looking at performing post requests. Pretty much the same as normal, really, as you would even if you were probably not web scraping, but if you're just posting to any other API. Payload equals JSON dumps payload. Requests.request post URL data equals payload, headers equals headers. And then at the ends, it just data equals response JSON, so it just returns a response.json object, which you can then pass. Just to show you, so coming back to the class, these are the three main methods within that class, which it's what I ended up running. So I just want to show you that. So scroll down, you can see I've been running it here. And if we go Vim, Cisco demo, this is pretty much the code that you just saw. Request JSON sys. I was attempting to use preprint, but there's no point actually. From request.packages URL, that just gets rid of the warning. Without that, you just get about 4 or 5 lines of text at the start of your output, which is a bit annoying, and it would mess up any potential parsing you're going to do. So yeah, there we go. And get post. So what I did was I added these lines in here. I said if name equals main, then SD1P. I just created an object which was that is the instance of the class. And I actually ended up, I had to pass in the IP address, username, password manually in the end. I had some issue with the environment variables. Need to go back and reread that. So the mount point here was device/counters. Get underscore request is the method of the class. And yeah, then the response. So I was getting the response. I just wanted to quickly print it out, so I just converted it to a string. So I just did response. Oh, it had the B apostrophe before each item in response because it was just a bytes object response. And yeah, so that was that. And these are just some examples of what I got returned. Probably won't mean much to you or me unless you're an expert on Cisco vManage, but as you can see, it's kind of, you've got stuff that you can go along and pass there. So what we've done is we've programmatically communicated with a Cisco SD WAN vManage appliance, and it's told you some IPs and host names of various devices that are connected to it or that it can manage. And where have we got to on the tabs? Yeah, that was that. I couldn't reach that because the VPN issue. Oh yeah, the one other thing. if you go to, let me just get rid of that. So if you go to the IP address of the vManage device and then you put in /API docs, you actually get a Swagger interface. So if any of you have used Fast API or indeed Swagger before, you will find you get this really nice Swagger interface to do all your testing with, which if you didn't want to bother with, once you connect to the device, if you didn't want to use Postman, you could just get you've got curl here as well. So, and you can use this to that was an error. I did successfully get some good output from that. But yeah, Swagger, you can that's the request URL there, look. So instead of that could then form another mount point potentially. I believe the mount points really are just endpoints, API endpoints. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, Cisco SD WAN 20.4 Sandbox. You can reserve it any time, but access any time without making. Oh, that's an always on one, which, yeah, when you try it out, that's what just gives you the. Okay, you have to log in, but yeah, that's what gives you your JSON. So yeah, if you've got access to Cisco DevNet, then recommend trying it. If you haven't, then see if you can sign up. And there's plenty of kind of Python stuff in there. There was, I was looking at the Tabulate, which I've used in the past, but I'd forgotten about it, to be honest. They were also using something called Click. It's like a decorator, which I don't fully see the reason for that, but that's probably just me being over minimalist. So there we go. Just because this was the SD WAN, I say you could probably start off with the XR. Sorry for all the clicking. Yeah, go to the developer.cisco.com/site/ios-xr. And this is what I would recommend to start with. Actually, this, I say that actually uses Python 2.7. So to be honest, if you don't care about the devices or the underlying technologies, the appliances and what they do, if you're not interested in SD-WAN solution, but you want to use Python 3, then probably the SD-WAN is still the one that you want to be using and looking at. Yeah, so just remember, if you do connect, it may be different on a Windows or a Mac machine, but just be aware that you might lose access to actually the documentation and the tutorials. So yeah, see how you can go with your VPN if you're using Cisco anyconnect on a Mac or Windows. Maybe let me know if it works better. Networking Sandbox. So Sandbox is basically behind the scenes, it's a load of VMs that they spin up to let you run riot with. So I hope I'm not going to get banned for just saying that R word, but it was figure of speech. Firepower. Firepower is kind of the new next generation NGFW. It's software that runs on top of the ASA firewalls that does a bit more layer 7 stuff. Previously, Cisco firewalls really just blocked ports and IP addresses. They've been a bit slow to catch up, really. So many 3-letter acronyms, I apologize, or initialisms. Yeah, have a look around the Cisco site. Say if you're interested in networking, or even if you're not, there's so much there that you can actually look at for automation. And yeah, so data center, cloud, Sandbox, Kubernetes, CI/CD. So any kind of DevOps stuff you might be interested in, you could experiment with here. So yeah, sign up for free. What's not to like? So hopefully that's been interesting, and if not, then sorry, I'll be back with some more stuff soon. Thanks for watching.